Okay, so today's topic is how to adopt a teachable spirit. And we're going back to John C. Maxwell's Leadershift book. And what he talks about is one of the things that we want to do is to become a growth-oriented person as opposed to a goals-oriented person. We talked yesterday about um, the the very first way to do that is to embrace change. The second is to adopt a teachable spirit. So it's very important as an attorney or anybody going through life to adopt a teachable spirit, which means you have a passion to learn, possessing the intention to learn every day, and reflecting on what you learn so you know how to apply it. And so, I actually do this with this broadcast, this video cast, this podcast. If you're listening on the podcast, basically, I'm learning as we go along through these books, and then I'm teaching this to you all, and it helps me. It actually helps you to be able to learn the material better when you're teaching it, right? And so here are the steps on how to adopt a teachable spirit, and then we'll go through each of those and how it applies to attorneys. So number one is John Maxwell makes growth his number one priority. So he's very intentional about making sure that he learns something as he goes along. He's conscious of the need to do that. He also looks for growth possibilities in every situation. So it's very important, as an attorney, there are lots of tasks that we go through. For example, there's a lot of things that we do as attorneys, right? We do document review, we write briefs, we conduct legal research, we have consultations with clients, lots of things that we do as we go along our day. And the question is, what do we learn from each experience? Because very often we sort of fall into something that's very rote. We're reviewing documents, we're looking for certain things, or writing a motion that perhaps, it's something that we've written before, right? But we never necessarily, or we don't necessarily think about, well, what am I learning each time that I do this? Or is there a lesson that I can pull from this very situation? And so that's what we want to ask ourselves to become a growth-oriented person is, what are we learning in each situation? The third step is to ask questions that will help me grow. One thing that we always tell our associates is, if you don't know something, to ask. It's very important to do that, because usually if you're given a task as attorney, you really need to understand the task that's at hand, and you need to be able to know what's being asked of you. And there could be a scope of something that you're doing. It could be something that's under a time restraint, and so you want to make sure that you're asking the important questions of the person that's giving you the task, whether that's a client, whether that's a senior partner that you're working for. It's extremely important because you don't want to, overbill your client. You want to do it as efficiently as you can. And so the one thing that you have to do is ask questions. So either asking important questions of your client or asking important questions of the senior partner. You also want to file what you have learned. So once you've sort of gone through this process and you've really thought about, the things that you can learn from a particular situation, what you have learned, you don't want to just think about it and then it goes away. You want to actually file what you have learned. So there's several ways you can do that. One way would be just to do a daily journal. One thing that I talked about recently is when you do like a 10x planner, it has one area where it's where you write down what your successes are. You might also, or instead of writing in your successes, you might write in one thing that you've learned today. And so that might be one way to go about this, is to actually journal it or put it in your 10x planner, things that you've learned today, things that you've done today, So it'll be easy for you to file that away when you file away your planner, or however you're doing your daily journal or planning. It's definitely one thing that you can do. And then the final step is to pass on what you've learned to others. So there's a number of ways to do that as an attorney. One way, of course, is to do something similar to what I'm doing here, which is, you know, a podcast or a vlog or a short video. That's one way to do it. Another way is to, when you're filing away all of these various things that you've learned, one thing that you might want to do is think about article topics, because, you know, as I've said many times throughout this podcast, is that you know, I'm a very big proponent of bar association work, of going to industry events and that sort of thing. And there's always publications that are looking for authors. So if you're doing a point of legal research for your client, you might want to think about, is this something that you think would have a broader interest just outside of your case, or is it a procedural thing that not a lot of people have talked about? Is it something that you've learned in terms of legal management, or how to deal with a potential client, or you know, rotten opposing counsel, or that sort of thing? So think about the things that you've learned, and whether you think what topic would have a broader appeal, so you can certainly write down what those you know, what those things are, so you can make sure that you you have an article that would have a broader appeal. So those are the lessons that you want to learn as you go along. And again, it's not necessarily, you know, like I do a lot of this, you know, sort of thing for like brand management or that sort of thing. And so, but one of the things that you certainly want to do is keep your mind open to you know, to be a growth-oriented person, and adopting a teachable spirit is definitely something that you want to do. So as your daily action item, I want you to think about, what is the thing, what did you learn today that you think you might want to file away, and think about teaching somebody else, whether that's somebody within your firm, somebody in the broader legal community. Is it something that you could do a CLE on, something you can write an article about? Definitely, I want you to think about that for your daily action item. If you have any comments, please write down. I'd love to see your comments on this piece. If you're listening to this on the Lawyer Lifestyle podcast, please be sure to send me a comment on any social media platform. I'm @AttorneyDSY. And if you need an attorney or need to refer a matter, please contact me at 312-239-9722 or at dscriven-young@pecklaw.com. And remember, to fight for the lifestyle that you want, become that rainmaker that you need to be.